I am so excited to be sitting down with Matt Knotts in the middle of his beautiful store, High Street. And in fact, we're in Rosemary's, the new lounge here, which is just amazing. And I'm excited that this is going to be the home for Amy's Table podcast to be recorded this season. And what a treat. And Matt, what a treat to have you joining me today.
Well, we are thrilled to have you here.
Oh, well,
we're big fans.
I'm right back at you. Every time I walk through this store, you've pulled off the ultimate magic trick in that it's full. There's something new every time you walk through, but there's not a sense of clutter or overwhelm.
Well, those are kind words. I don't. We have trained mice that come in at night.
Well, it is beautiful. So, everybody has an origin story.
Sure.
And at what point in your life did you feel drawn to design?
Get into this crazy business?
Yeah.
So, I think I've got a little bit of a twisty turny that brought me here. I was raised in a construction family. And so we were always building. And my dad was a larger than life entrepreneur that really was a cowboy at heart, which got us into a lot of like precarious situations and, near death experiences. My mom was a nurse, but a stay-at-home mom, very pragmatic, very precise, very, you fold towels a certain way, you stacked them in a certain way. I mean, just order. And I think between the combo of those two, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, lived in Wyoming for a year, back to Tulsa, then to North Carolina, and then to here. So have seen a few different geographies, but it all, raised it with the mentality of figure it out. There wasn't a lot of teaching. And so it was a very kind of independence building, figure it out sort of mentality. And I think that that's where it really started is, being a very curious kid, getting in trouble a lot and being taught to always be around your surroundings, which taught me to pay attention and notice small things, big things. And, on top of that, I was always rearranging my bedroom and asking my mom that, I was supposed to be dropped off at another house by the store because we were supposed to be on pretty vacations and doing other things than feeding pigs and training chickens. So I think it all started there.
I have to say, when you talk about your dad being a cowboy and larger than life, that answers some of the merchandise that you have upstairs in the men's department. Looks like it might be an homage to Dad in a very nice way, which I love.
I mean, big hunter, he was quite a character.
But your mom and the order and the folding the towels just right answers that. You and I have talked about our shared love of a linen closet.
And perfectly folded, crisp.
Yes, love that. I mean, you even iron your sheets, crazy man.
Absolutely.
I don't go that far, but anyway.
It's life-changing.
But you mentioned chickens.
Oh,
Can you tell me a little bit about the chickens in your life? Because I understand there was one that was kind of a prodigy.
I had three. There was Pickle, Feather, and Feather's husband. And then the rest of the coop.
Was that his name, Feather's husband?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He became dinner when he spurred my mom. There was it's a very long story that'll be another episode. But I had a coop of chickens along with pigs and cows and horses and goats and whatever else, two younger brothers. But the chickens, I would sell eggs. And so it was 10 cents if you came to pick them up, 15 cents if I delivered them on my bike. But in addition to that, I became convinced at a young age, like 4 or 5, that I had them trained. And by trained, I mean sit on your arm, that kind of thing. To the extent that I was invited to a birthday party at the Uncle Zeb after school special, which is like local access, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Probably a weirdo dressed up like a clown with kids. Sounds great. So, and the whole time in the bleachers, I'm like, I have trained chickens, and motioning, trying to get Uncle Zeb's attention so that I could take my chickens on the show. And I go home and I tell my mom this, and this is a good story about my mom, that, I think Uncle Zeb would be interested in my trade chickens, and her being her.
I'm sorry. I love that. I think Uncle Zeb would be interested in my
I was in full seriousness. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? You're probably right. You should call him. And I said, I'm going to do that. And she said, well, there's the phone book. So I go and I'm like, WLW, finding it. And I call the receptionist or call the main line. Person answers. And I'm like, can I talk to Uncle Zeb? Well, he's not here. Well, I was just there for a birthday party and he's going to want to talk to me. Go on and on and on. And finally, she just refused. I'm like, can I have his personal number, his home number? What are you calling about, young man? I'm like, well, I have trained chickens and he's really going to want to know about this. And my mom around the corner was just, I'm sure, cackling.
But also probably so proud. I didn't really.
Well, it certainly put me on the path to where I am now. There were lots of stories about that with her, kind of creating moments where having to form independence and, looking at barriers as just something to navigate around and that there was always a way around it. Now, Uncle Zeb never called back, but I had a short attention span.
So thank God you got over that.
I did.
And only ate one of the 3 chickens.
Only Pickle Feather's husband. We'll talk about Ginger the next time.
Well, you have such an eclectic inventory here.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of what do you even say? Oddities, an assortment of oddities?
So oddities are like the stripper mice, the taxidermy stripper mice.
Right. I love those.
Or, taxidermy or skulls, like the curiosities, things that you would find out, on a trail ride in the West, which I was on a lot as a kid. And, I think living in so many different places, I saw all sorts of types of spaces, and that informed very much my own personal aesthetic and certainly informed when I opened my business, like who and what I wanted to be.
Right.
And continues to.
And speaking of opening your business, you and your husband, Andrew, going on a 10-year anniversary this year.
10-year married this year. Yes.
And the business is 20 this year?
In this location, this is our 20th year. I opened in 2001, but in this location, 20 years.
So you go for big things every 10 years. I'm curious to see what's next.
I am too.
Maybe it'll involve trained chickens or something.
I wonder what Uncle Zeb's up to now. I need to track him down.
Well, Andrew mentioned that you do, in fact, have an eclectic taste in music. And while he might lean more toward the Dead cover bands, you lean more toward Rufus Del Sol.
Oh, sure. Rufus Del Sol.
Did you actually see Rufus Del Sol in Las Vegas?
I did. What?
We have to fill people in.
I was tricked.
So tell us this story.
So my husband and his brother wanted to go to the Sphere to see the Dead in company, which I had no interest in. I'm like, who, what? But I looked on the dates and I just saw Rufus Du Sol, which I'm a big fan. And I just bought tickets and decided I would go on the trip. And they go to the Sphere and I make it to the venue. And, I'm standing in line and the person was like, well, do you want to buy VIP? So I just continued to upgrade. And so I walk in and it's this empty room at like 10. And it doesn't start to fill up till like 11. And then I start to realize like, this isn't actually a show. This is a DJ cover set. And the longer it went, I'm like, and I didn't see them. I went to Hermes instead.
Now that's not all bad. That's definitely not all bad. Oh my God.
They got a kick out of it.
So design is such a personal expression.
Sure.
And yours is very unique. I feel like while I couldn't define it for you, I can sort of recognize it a little bit. How would you define your design style?
So I like to separate it into 2 sort of categories. There's my personal design style, like what interests me, what do I gravitate to? And there's been a common thread since I was a kid there. And then there's the design style of who I'm working for. And they're 2 very distinct things. Certainly my own interest comes through, but I limit that to, I like things that are rooted in classicism, things that are timeless and don't have a shelf life, things that have an appropriate amount of tension, and that could be, new versus old or bold pattern in subdued furnishings. Like it's more, what is the emotional feeling when you're in the space? And so those are common threads. But then, each space we work on the interior design side of our business is really about hitting the mark of who lives there, how do they live there, what problems are we trying to solve for them, and what space are we creating for them that they come home and they feel they fall in love with it. Now, there's certainly folks that have a personal style that I'm not the best person to execute for them. People that have a sense of curiosity, who have traveled enough to see a wide range of things, who are open to be challenged or pushed comfortably, are the folks that we really shine with. I think if someone hired us to do a super stark, sleek, minimalist interior, we would not do so well. I like too many layers, too much texture, too much depth for that.
I like the honesty, though, of, you have one style, but when you design for a client, you're not just inflicting,
right,
if you will, your style on them. You're really, but it's got to be through your lens, which is why they come to you in the first place.
Sure.
But I also appreciate that there might be a client that you would say,
this person over here is better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's sort of our responsibility to recognize that. And, it took me a while to learn that. I think what has been the best thing is that over the course of time, the ability to curate and edit more quickly and more accurately. So, knowing that, yes, this is good or this is not right, being able to more quickly apply a filter to things is something that took me a while to evolve. And I think it takes, most people a while to reach a point in their life where they can more quickly and decisively know something emphatically.
Right.
And that is, and to help someone understand like why that is right or why that is not the best choice, and lead them through that thought process. And that's what I think we're best known for, is our understanding of construction because of my upbringing, right, and the sequence and the process and the methodology, but also the ability to speak to someone's points of resistance, or being able to fill in the gaps that are hard to articulate, and while you're asking them to do like a trust fall, right? You're like, no, really, I promise you'll like it.
Well, Ed, you remember that I reached out to you to do an event space that was really lacking for any personality whatsoever.
Sure.
And Matt, I already knew the power of strong design. Both my parents were architects, but the transformation that furniture made. And
it was a fun project.
Photograph themselves.
Of course, that was
they were all Insta moments, weren't they?
Good.
And I think that's so great. And it was a bit of a trust fall. I want to say, not for me. I was all in from the minute I walked into this beautiful place. But I think that you can't underestimate how your environment makes you feel. Now, you clearly have a sense of personal style, and you and Andrew have renovated.
No, it's a never-ending process.
Forever.
Yeah, it's forever. It's truly the money pit, but yes.
How does your sense of style or design impact your personal style, your personal approach to entertaining, to living, to traveling?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. And so my philosophy in design and in most things is never take anything too seriously. My mantra is like, what's the worst that could happen? We're not precious. This isn't precious. It should be inspiring and equally approachable and accessible. And that I think of good design as almost like a democratic right. It's not reserved for the elite or the rich or the wealthy or the highly educated. It should be available to anyone who's curious and it recognizes the emotional difference between, a sterile space and one that makes them feel good. And so the way that I think that influences my personal style and the way that I live is, a dinner party with people who matter that of all walks of life, and, food that was carefully prepared, but doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
and a setting that, has the right lighting and candles and background music. Yeah.
There is scientific proof that conversations are more genuine and real in dim light. And that's why firelight, when people sit around a bonfire, a campfire, a fire in the fireplace.
It's like truth serum.
It is.
Mm-hmm. It sure is.
I could live my whole life in candlelight and firelight.
I could too.
It's a little awkward.
Just like here.
But I could. So you bring that sense of style, like the table itself. I'm assuming you're doing fabulous tablescapes, even if they aren't necessarily overwrought or whatever.
Yeah.
But
no, I like a table where conversation can breathe, and that it's not a place where you sit down and you feel like you have to follow protocol. So not an overdressed table, one that feels very comfortable, and that the place settings generally match. And that the food is all family style, and it's the right curation of people, because that really, at the end of the day, is what I want to remember, is the conversations and the laughter and the stories, and the food is secondary. And
your environment is impacting, obviously, all of that. I think that design or care of one environment is a lot like hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
And hospitality for ourselves, too. Right?
It is.
I mean, if my house is very cluttered or there's something that I am not enjoying about it, we've had conversations, I have an entryway that is the bane of my existence.
We're going to fix that.
I mean, truly, I hope so.
We're going to fix that.
You know what? It's the first thing people see.
It is. It's one of the most important rooms in the house.
And every time we walk into it, I go, oh. And then I get upstairs and I've got...
And then you're like, okay, well, I made it through that.
But it's like, wait, I deserve that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's the hospitality.
Sure.
I want people to feel, I think sometimes design can be used as a weapon if somebody's trying to make people feel intimidated or...
We as interior designers are our own worst enemies in terms of that. Like there's been a long history of building kind of this exclusive mentality, or that I know a language and I know tricks that, is a mystery. And the truth is, I'm not formally trained. My degree's in psychophysiology as a pre-med. And it's that I go back to the way I was brought up, and that kind of obstacles are things to navigate around, problem solve, fiercely independent, and highly stubborn and persistent. So, I spent, I don't know how many hours, countless years worth of self-teaching, the technical tools and reading. And, I think when I've talked to DAP students, the message is they can teach you amazing things here and really important things. But unless you believe in your own point of view and you have kind of a creative bent and you enjoy the process of creatively solving a problem, you might not like this field. And you may struggle in it. And so, I think that is where that's kind of the secret weapon there.
So clearly you go into a lot of homes of people who are hiring you as a designer, homes all over the place, cool homes.
There, yeah.
I mean, you've built an amazing following. What do you see? I don't want to say a pet peeve, and I don't want to put you in an awkward spot, but what do you see that people, you're like, oh, you're just shooting yourself in the foot with that? What are some of the biggest design mistakes that you see?
There's so many.
I'm getting ready to make a mental inventory in my mind if they're all in my home.
Okay. First off, I was getting a haircut recently. They're washing my hair, and I'm looking up. I'm like, there are 3 different color temperatures in these chandeliers. And I asked the person, I said, do you know what Kelvin is? And she was like, no, what's that? I said, it's the temperature in which lighting is measured. Do you see those bulbs? How many colors do you see? And she's like, oh. And then it's not understanding lighting. And the industry has made it very difficult to understand, particularly with LED.
Oh, they sure have.
And so it's a very easy thing to screw up. But lighting, and the fact that you don't want 5,000 Kelvin operating level temperature, you want 2,700 warm, and that it's got to all be on dimmers, and that
everything on a dimmer.
There's multiple layers. Absolutely.
Come on.
There's lamps, there's candle, there's overhead, and so that's all sort of creating a mood. Like look at a movie set or a theater set. There's a lighting designer that creates lighting intentionally. And so I think one of my biggest pet peeves is walking in and seeing multiple color or the bulbs that have a low color rendering rating. Undersized
we
rugs.
should put a cheat sheet online for some of that because it's hard with the LED, as you say.
There is.
I've sometimes ordered them and I think I'm getting the right thing, and they're
It's
cold.
inconsistent language. And once you understand what to look for, you're like, it's much easier. But
I'm going to get Matt to do a cheat sheet on
I have one from a complicated project where I got to get a whole PhD in lamping.
But it's critical.
Undersized rug. I mean, if I walk into another room and I see at least the front legs of the furniture not on the rug, really, really.
That one I know. Ching, I got that one right.
Underscaled furniture. People were like, well, they don't. It's not a obvious thing for folks to understand, like scale and dimension, and that this love seat is going to be swallowed by this room. And so then they'll just add more furniture.
Which becomes clutter.
And then it becomes clutter. And then if they like, if they lean into the matching sets, that's
the key. Don't walk into
don't buy the room.
Chain furniture store
No.
and go, I'll take this room.
Yeah.
Because it's not you. Come on.
I want the Astoria set or whatever.
Right.
No.
Right.
No. So that's, so that would be one. And then art placement. Everyone hangs them way too high.
Is it?
It's generally eye level, but there are times where, I've hung art that is 3 inches above a table. It's
because you're seated and
it's seated and it's sort of what is the scale of the room? What's the scale of the setting? And there's many times I'm like, well, we need to first rehang all this art.
And what a difference
at the ceiling.
I don't know why this popped into my mind, but I used to always see the phrase, and I'll try and say it, joie de vivre.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember saying to my aunt, how do you say that, joie de vivre? And she looked at me and she goes, do what I do, darling, and just avoid saying it.
Just avoid saying it. Say it in a different way.
But so with art, I'm pretty good if it's a big piece and I hang the center of it at about my eye level, sometimes a little taller because there might be taller people in my life. But multiples, a wall of multiples, it's like joie de vivre. I just avoid it. I can't figure out how to do that. That's a hard thing.
Salon style. Which
yes.
Is, it's my favorite. I love it. I mean, I have a lot of that in my own house, and it's harder to pull off because you've got to edit and curate and
be level
and lay it out. Yeah. Well, that's if you don't drink and you do it early in the day.
That's my problem.
With the lights all the way up.
Yeah.
So it can be intimidating for folks to do. But
right.
And buy an oversized piece of art. If you're going to buy, like, don't buy a little, 24 by 30 and hang it on a giant wall.
Right. It just will, whether you know it or not,
right.
Your psyche will be telling you that didn't work.
And that's where people are like, it just doesn't feel right. And you walk in, you're like, well, your rug's too small. You bought the matching set and all your art is hung at the ceiling.
And your lights all different colors, some cold, some warm.
And with no dimmers.
Yeah. It helps to have somebody walk through and do that. And I'm sure you've learned the art of how to do that without making someone go in the corner and cry.
Of course. So it's the idea that a cornerstone of the brand and who we are is having a perspective and there being room for a lot of other perspectives.
Right.
And helping someone understand your own and letting them shift. I'm not going to preach to you, but I'm going to be like, you don't have to have 3 different color plates.
Right.
And here's the reason you might not want 3 color.
Yeah. Some of the littlest things sometimes can, spring is a coming.
Oh, it can't come soon enough.
God,
right?
I know.
The long winter.
This was one of the first years where I thought, I get why people go south.
That might be our age.
I know. Except for, hopefully you can't tell. But what are some design trends this spring? I mean, and that's the other thing. How do you feel about trying to keep up on trends too much?
So, I never watch any design shows. And I only read a few design-specific publications. I am not someone who follows trends. I think it's important to understand like what is coming, like from a overall arching movement or what color or general color intensity we're moving to. But trends are if you follow the trend, it's what gives you a limited shelf life. And to me, if you're looking at if you're considering like, okay, well, what looks good and what doesn't feel quite right. If you just go back to like, would this have looked right in the 50s or the 40s or the 20s or even before? There are elements to all of those that hold true. And those are sort of very timeless sort of things. We all are victim of like the avocado refrigerator, right? Big trend. And so we have had a slew of that. And so I think when it comes to refreshing from season to season, it's more about the smaller things that you live with, not the big things. And, if you've got a great green thumb, then, a new batch of orchids or force some bulbs or, a new fiddle leaf fig, like greenery. If you don't have a green thumb, as I like to call them, everlasting botanicals, they go a long way and swap them out for something that's more spring forward. Throw pillows are the easiest and quickest way to change a room, right?
Oh, and you have such gorgeous pillows here.
So you swap out the cover for a more spring forward, and you then start to give yourself, some movement there. And I think before you do anything, my first advice to someone trying to do it themselves is stop first, take note, ask yourself like the questions a designer would ask you, and force yourself to go through the editing process.
That's key. I think it's almost like a wardrobe. They
it's
say to a woman,
the same.
Throw it all on and
put everything on and then maybe take a few things back off.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in our house. I think that's one of the tricks designers use that people don't realize is we leave room for space. You don't need to, how is it said? The best piece of furniture sometimes is the piece you don't buy. Leaving space for just space. And that plays into scale. And, scale plays into the way our brains interpret a room. And that subconsciously tells us whether we feel comfortable or whether we feel uncomfortable in a room, right?
It's funny, traveling, so many hotel rooms you walk in, if it's a beautiful hotel and you're like, oh,
yeah,
that's partly because it's highly edited.
Sure.
There's no clutter in a hotel room.
And yeah, and the scale is right, and the spacing is right, and the heights are right. Not everything's at the same level, and all of those things that inform our brains in a very subconscious way.
Yeah.
Have been thought about and executed unbeknownst to you.
Exactly, and it's all to how you'll respond. So why not have that same? You can have color and texture and excitement, but still have a serene environment.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's it. When you walk into your house, you want to go, I'm home.
And I when I'm first meeting with folks, I will say, if you walk into a space that we did and you walk away with one singular, like, I loved that light fixture or I loved that chair, we didn't quite do our job. You should really, the first reaction is, I just love being in this room. I don't know why. And then as you sit there and it percolates, you might be like, well, I really like that. And I like that. And I could go without that.
Right.
But the first reaction is just the general feeling. Too many times I think rooms are done for one singular moment. And that to me is just a huge missed opportunity because you're not getting sort of the full sense or the full experience of what our brains seek and want.
Yeah. I had a woman on my show once who was a stylist. And she talked about how women are drawn to the sparkly top or the beautiful dress.
Yep.
She said, when you're in the dressing room trying it on, look yourself in the eye and go, girl, where are you going in that?
Right.
Make sure your life matches what you're
Play
purchasing.
the movie where you are wearing it.
Exactly. And it's like with your home, it should be designed for when you get home from work, when you have friends over, when the kids are rolling around.
Absolutely.
It's got to encompass your life.
Your life and the rhythm that your life takes. And that's, I think, another piece that is oftentimes missed with designers and something that we are very pragmatic about, that's coming from my mom, is beautiful things have to be functional and livable. If it's just precious and it's just pretty for the sake of being pretty, it doesn't make the cut.
Remember, I think that it's more our age group that they had plastic over the couches in the living room. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I remember.
No, there was a mail order like catalog that you could have it made.
Yeah, I remember friends' living rooms where you walked by. Don't go.
It's like entombed, right? Or
yeah.
It's just.
I would say
weird.
my parents really rallied on that. Our house was livable all the way through. My only reminder from my mom was always, the living room is not a gymnasium.
My mom said the same.
Did she?
Yes.
That must have been something.
Well, it was 3 boys, and we were, on a farm, and I mischievous and curious, and so we were always bringing animals and things in the house that aren't supposed to come in the house.
Like trained chickens.
Trained chickens, or the goat when she would be gone.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Well, so obviously everyone can't afford to bring a designer into their life and all of that. But let's say you have $100
Yep.
and a couple of hours on the weekend. What's something that someone could do to make a pretty big impact?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. I mean, the first thing I would do is I would extend an invitation to come to High Street, not for the sake of buying, just walk around.
Yes, get
Pay
inspired.
attention to, way things are put together, what the scale, try and absorb what is presented. And we don't always get it right. We've had plenty of times where we've not gotten it right, and we've learned from that. And I think just spending some time in the store, you can, or stores like this that are not corporate, that aren't driven by an algorithm or a corporate buying group, where it is very personal and, a high touch. Then I think it's looking at where are the things that have the biggest, let's say it's your kitchen. And, one of the quickest ways to change a kitchen or even a dated piece of furniture is swap the hardware.
Yes,
get rid of the chrome has a place, and it's timeless within context, but out of context, without its like classic black and white subway and that sort of 1940s New York apartment, it can feel a little cold, and we're moving into more warmth. We're moving away from the decade or 15 years of cool grays and stark whites, and so warmer metals are certainly something that we all need to be paying more attention to.
I even turned my curtain rods brass.
Yeah. Which is easy to do. You go to Michael's or a rub and buff. Comes in a little tube. It's wax. It's metallic. You rub it on. It turns anything, whatever color. You can get rose gold, bright gold, antique gold.
I had no idea.
Burnished silver, and then you it's like a wax that you polish up, and highly durable. And you can apply it to, not fabric, but any wood or solid surface. And so it's easy to change something, its finish, without changing the whole thing.
Love that. Any other quick $100
I think $100 ideas. So hardware, I think pillows are a great place to start. It's probably the one that's most overused, though. I would go, invest in like an olive tree, an architectural botanical of some kind, that gives you structure in a room, that also brings an element of natural living and gives kind of a dimension and some serenity. I would say there's a lot of affordable rug options. And so if you did fall prey to an undersized rug, size your rug up.
We're not charging.
Or get a really inexpensive rug and put it under your rug. And so you're layering the rugs.
I've seen that at front doors more and more now. Often that looks a little country to me, but it's sweet.
If you go with a natural sisal and you do a pattern rug on top, that can look interesting if you pick the right tones. Paint, obviously.
Yeah.
I would say one of the biggest changes you can do if you're living in kind of a generic sort of architecture, you're not in a historical home, or if you are in a historical home, pick your favorite color and be bold and don't be fearful. And paint all your doors in that color, but gloss.
I love that idea.
Easy.
I love that idea. I once painted our front door bright red enamel. I was so excited. I don't think I wiped down the door or anything, because that's what I do. I'm very impetuous.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm up on a ladder slapping it on, and I didn't straighten the little shelf.
Oh, yeah.
And I pushed on the shelf, and red enamel flung all
Went everywhere.
over, including So I try to leave that to the professional.
Yeah. I've had a few of those mistakes myself.
Yeah.
They're painful.
Well, I have $100 weekend idea, and that is grab a friend or grab a couple friends, come to High Street, grab a couple cocktails,
Absolutely.
coffee, and your phone, and click
away.
a million beautiful ideas.
Yeah. And post and tag.
Oh, yes, there you go.
You know, we got light bites, coffee drinks, cocktails, wine.
It's a natural build.
Yeah.
It really is a natural
It is.
build.
And it was, you know, when I first opened the business, this was something that I always imagined would be part of it. And finally was last year.
It's fabulous. I love everything about it. And as I say, I'm so excited that this is where we're going to be recording
We're
the
thrilled.
podcast.
We equally are.
Well, and we're going to have so many great tips to share through the year and events that we'll be doing here. And so really excited. Well, Matt Knotts, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank
sharing
you.
Your inspiration, your ideas, and Mr. Feather's husband, Mrs. Feather's husband. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And don't forget, there's always a seat for you at Amy's table.